Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving right into a massive 1.8-million-year-old mystery. We're traveling way back to explore the origins of Homo habilis, and we're going to answer one absolutely crucial question. How in the world did a creature that was so incredibly physically vulnerable spark a lineage that would eventually take over the entire planet?
I've always loved the saying that this is the story hidden inside ancient bones. And honestly, looking at those bones, it's a total paradox. Just imagine this, a creature pretty small in stature, standing out in an untamed, wild landscape, completely lacking the sheer brute strength of the beasts around it. It is entirely outmatched physically. But it has two incredible advantages brewing. It has a steadily growing brain and hands that are actually starting to look and move a whole lot like yours and mine. And that sets the stage for a really wild evolutionary investigation.
So that brings us to the core question of our deep past, right? What kind of world did Homo habilis actually live in, and why was survival so ridiculously difficult? I mean, think about the sheer improbability of this whole thing. How did early humans, who are basically physically defenseless, outlast some of the most fearsome predators in history to eventually shape modern humanity?
Well, our story really kicks off with a pivotal date, November 4th, 1960. On this day, at the dry, sediment-rich landscape of Olduvai Gorge over in Tanzania, which, by the way, was already a famous spot for early human evolution studies, a young researcher named Jonathan Leakey noticed something a bit weird emerging from the dirt. It was part of an ancient jaw. And as his team kept digging, they found pieces of a skull, parts of a lower jaw, teeth, and some absolutely crucial bones from a hand. This fossil, known scientifically as OH7, was affectionately nicknamed Johnny's child.
Those hand bones, they were a massive clue. With fingers and a thumb that allowed for a really strong, precise grip, these were hands built for action. That's exactly why scientists named this new species Homo habilis, which literally translates to handy or skillful human. The name perfectly reflects their useful physical abilities and their link to early stone tools. But, as you'll see, having handy fingers definitely did not mean life was easy. Okay, let's dive into this.
Section 1. A dangerous ancient world. The problem. To really grasp what they were up against, we need to set the scene of the African landscape nearly 2 million years ago.
The environment itself was literally out to get them. Africa's climate was undergoing this massive, dramatic shift. Dense, protective forests and woodlands were slowly dying off, giving way to these wide-open grasslands and mixed habitats. And this was a huge problem. It meant unpredictable seasonal water sources. It meant intense competition from large animals for whatever food was left. But most terrifyingly for an early human, an open grassland meant there was simply nowhere to hide from predators.
And look at this contrast on the screen. It is staggering. Homo habilis had a relatively small body, no sharp claws, no thick armor, and let's face it, they weren't exactly winning any sprints over long distances. Meanwhile, the landscape was prowled by enormous ancient cats, huge crocodiles, and these massive hyenas with literal bone-crushing jaws. In a purely physical fight, Homo habilis loses. Every single time. So how on earth did they survive? Section 2. Minds over muscle. The solution. Since sheer physical power was completely off the table, survival required a totally different evolutionary breakthrough.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how evolution actually works. It doesn't create perfect creatures, it creates adaptable ones. And every adaptation comes with a dangerous trade-off. Take the larger brain. It supported flexible behavior, better memory, learning, all great stuff. But the trade-off was brutal. A bigger brain demands massive amounts of energy, in a world where everyone is practically starving. Or consider bipedalism, walking upright on two legs. This freed up their hands to carry tools and food, which was amazing. But standing tall in the tall grass, yeah, that just made them a highly visible target for predators in the distance.
But those freed up hands led to something truly revolutionary, the Oldowan tool tradition. Now, we are just talking about simple stone flakes and cores here. It might not look like much to us today, but let me tell you, a sharp rock was basically the very first equalizer in history. It could do the heavy lifting that bare hands simply couldn't. It could cut tough plant material, break open bones to extract that amazing calorie-rich marrow, and slice right through thick meat.
And that meat usually came from a highly dangerous scavenging strategy. Just picture this incredibly tense scenario. A huge ancient cat takes down its prey and eats its fill. What's left behind is a carcass holding incredibly valuable life-saving calories. But walking up to it? Unbelievably risky.
A lone Homo habilis wouldn't stand a chance, but a group of them? That's different. One individual acts as a lookout, another hauls heavy stones to the site, others frantically process the meat, constantly communicating, ready to scatter the exact second a rival pack of hyenas or the original predator returns. Their true, absolute, most powerful tool wasn't the stone at all. It was their cooperation.
Section 3. Investigating the fossil evidence. Because figuring out this 1.8-million-year-old story is essentially the world's most intricate ancient crime scene investigation.
So how do we actually know all this? To solve these mysteries, scientists rely on something called taphonomic analysis. Taphonomy is the scientific process of analyzing ancient remains to figure out exactly what happened to them after they died. And it is absolutely vital, because scientists have to be able to separate a real predator attack from just simple environmental damage. Like if a bone has a groove on it, they need to know, was it bitten by a crocodile 2 million years ago, or was it just scraped by a rock in a riverbed centuries later?
And this brilliantly illustrates the incredibly meticulous steps scientists take to piece it all together. First, they compare marks on the ancient bones to the bite patterns of known modern and ancient animals. Second, they look for microscopic, perfectly straight cut marks that could literally only be made by the sharp edge of a stone tool. Finally, they examine the surrounding burial rock layers to estimate the bone's exact age and environment. Every single fossil is a crucial piece of this giant puzzle.
Actually, wait, let's take a quick reality check here. The world of Homo habilis was incredibly dangerous, for sure, but it wasn't a non-stop Hollywood action movie. Ordinary, quiet routines were just as vital as those dramatic encounters. Knowing exactly where to find water during the dry season, recognizing which plants wouldn't kill you, remembering where the good tool-making stones were hiding, resting, and most importantly, passing that hard-won knowledge down to the young. These routine, everyday behaviors were the true, sturdy foundations of their survival.
Section 4. The legacy. The path to modern humans. Those early, quiet struggles of Homo habilis ultimately laid the groundwork for the rest of human history. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds across an immense stretch of history. Over 1.8 million years ago, Homo habilis is surviving, adapting, and using simple tools in Africa. Fast forward to about 1 million years ago, and a new species emerges on the scene, Homo erectus. You see, there was no single magic moment when an ape suddenly flipped a switch and became human. It was this slow, gradual accumulation of advantages over thousands of generations that eventually leads to today, where modern humans span the entire globe.
When we compare Homo habilis directly to their successors, Homo erectus, we can really see that evolutionary leap. Homo habilis had a smaller body and brain and was mostly restricted to local African landscapes. But the foundation they laid, the tool use, the richer diet, the intense cooperation, that directly enabled Homo erectus to develop a much larger body and brain, making them fully capable of traveling across vast territories and eventually migrating completely beyond Africa.
If you take just one thing away from this explainer today, let it be this profound realization. Human progress did not begin with power. We were absolutely not the fastest, the strongest, or the most lethal creatures on the African savanna. Not even close. Our lineage survived because of curiosity, observation, adaptability, and above all else, cooperation. Our greatest advantage has always been our ability to combine lots of small, learned abilities to overcome massive, terrifying obstacles.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. If our very survival as a species was born from early cooperation and adaptability in the face of impossible odds, what small opportunities, what shared tools today will we use to shape the new future of humanity? It is absolutely incredible to think that the same traits that saved Johnny's child 1.8 million years ago are the exact same traits we rely on right now. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.